Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. The first 4 years of my marriage felt like a dream, full of laughter, love, and the excitement of building a life together. The next 8 years were quite decent, a steady rhythm of everyday life, but the last 18 plunged us into a deep abyss of suffering. I had no clear reason to endure it. Perhaps it was a glimmer of hope that things would improve, or maybe I was just too exhausted to change the course of my life. Anna and I got married right after graduating from university, filled with youthful optimism. I laid bricks and she waited tables, and for the first couple of years, we thrived, or at least it seemed that way. But then, like a thief in the night, everything changed, and I had no idea what storm was brewing beneath the surface. Yes, I knew Anna was pregnant, and naturally I assumed the child was mine. Only 12 years after Liza's birth did the truth hit me like a freight train. My daughter was not biologically mine. As Liza grew, the cracks in my relationship with Anna widened, but it wasn't a sudden break. It was a slow, painful erosion. When Liza was born, Anna stepped back from work, and I managed to provide us with a comfortable, though unremarkable, life. I didn't immediately realize that Anna and Liza always had wardrobes sparkling with the latest trends. Anna was careful with our finances, never spending extra on herself, yet somehow they were always impeccably dressed. I noticed this but never confronted her about it. In the early years of Liza's life, everything seemed fine, but when she entered her teenage years, a storm cloud of moodiness hovered over her. I shared my concerns with Anna, but she brushed them off, leaving me with a gnawing feeling. That's when it dawned on me. Liza was becoming a reflection of her mother, and our once vibrant relationship was slipping through my fingers like sand. Our intimacy had become a distant memory. I no longer took the initiative. I just responded to her actions. It felt like I was grasping at shadows, cold and distant. My focus shifted to saving money for a house, but as that goal drew closer, my desire diminished. I hid my savings in a secure place, constantly adding to them. As Liza's 12th birthday approached, I finished work early, deciding to find the perfect gift. Walking through an unfamiliar business district, I noticed a small urban park across the street. There, on a bench, sat Anna with an older man in a suit. Liza was beaming between them, her laughter sounding like music. At that moment, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. I slipped into a nearby cafe and settled by the window, unable to take my eyes off them. For almost an hour, I watched them share stories and laugh. It felt like a lifetime since I had been with them. Eventually, they stood up and embraced each other warmly. The stranger leaned in and gently kissed Anna on the cheek, then waved goodbye and crossed the street. My curiosity was piqued, and I discreetly followed him until he entered a building. Brian Lee, a financial director with a large office on the 3rd floor. This was the revelation I needed. I used to go out of my way to be a considerate partner, even surprising Anna with flowers and small tokens of affection from time to time. But that all changed. A thick veil of indifference settled over me. I concocted a story about back problems that kept me from sleeping at night, just enough to justify moving into the spare room with a new mattress. Now the distance was not only physical, but also emotional. It was Liza's birthday, and I missed it without giving her a gift. Strangely, she didn't seem bothered by it. She never brought it up. Meanwhile, my workdays grew longer and longer. I left home before dawn and returned after dinner, and my absence became a routine. Anna mentioned my long hours a few times, but eventually stopped. Life in our house continued. Anna and Liza adjusted their days to fit my schedule. It was an unspoken agreement, a silent acceptance of my absence. Anna took on the role of caretaker, doing my laundry and keeping my room in order. On weekends, I handled the yard and all the chores that needed attention. Bills were paid on time, and it seemed that in my absence, they were thriving. With the extra hours at work, my savings steadily grew. During our weekend dinners, the atmosphere was heavy and muted. Anna and Liza exchanged glances, but the silence was palpable, as if we were all actors in a play no one wanted to acknowledge. This quiet suffering stretched out for 18 long years. I had no idea when or how Anna and Liza reconnected with Brian, and frankly, I didn't care. It seemed insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And then, one fateful night, everything changed. I came home late from work to find Anna and Liza sitting together, tears streaming down their faces. I walked to the kitchen to grab a beer, and the weight of the moment descended on me like a dark cloud, after which I retreated to my room, feeling a sense of foreboding I couldn't shake. The kitchen table was covered with a local newspaper, its pages crumpled and worn, with the classifieds open like a forgotten book. Something about it caught my eye, and I picked up the newspaper to take a closer look. And there it was, a name that sent a chill down my spine. Brian Lee, listed among the obituaries. The revelation struck me like lightning. Brian had no living relatives. His funeral was handled by a special organization, and his estate was managed by a rather unremarkable firm. It was a strange twist of fate, considering my history with Nicholas Johnson, my schoolmate who took a different path from me. He went to university, while I found my calling as a stonemason. He was a decent lawyer, and I was a master with brick and mortar. Despite the years and the divergent paths, we remained friends. But as time went on, I felt an acute need that I couldn't ignore. I couldn't shake this nagging feeling. I explained the entire situation to Nicholas, the whole tangled mess. I had no solid proof that Brian was Liza's father, but sometimes gut feelings drive us to act. Given that Brian's estate might be hanging by a thread and no close relatives were claiming it, I was convinced that he must have left his fortune to someone. Nicholas, ever the opportunist, saw this as an intriguing project. We decided to pursue child support, even though Liza was already 28, because he was her father and had not provided for her all these years. To keep our story plausible, we settled on the figure of $2 million. It was still speculative, but with hope and desperation, we filed a claim against the estate for an astonishing sum. The game was on, and I could feel the stakes rising. I didn't mean to come across as greedy, I just craved my share of the pie. Nicholas, as always, offered to help me with the divorce, but I flatly refused. As for Brian, he was cremated. What happened to his ashes remains a mystery to me. 2 months later, Anna received an unexpected letter informing her of the reading of Brian Lee's will. I stumbled upon the letter hidden in her nightstand. It wasn't addressed to me. Instead, it was meant for Nicholas. The will was to be read by Charlie Wilson, with Anna Smith, her daughter Liza, and Nicholas Johnson, the lawyer representing my interests, all in attendance. Anticipation hung in the air, and I couldn't shake the feeling that secrets were about to be revealed. Nicholas recalled the moment when Anna and Liza's jaws dropped in astonishment as I was awarded the entire sum I had requested. Each of them received $20,000, the last remnants of the inheritance after I had taken my share. When the will was finally read, the terms were crystal clear. Brian bequeathed all of his estate in equal parts to Anna and his biological daughter. The clarity of this statement was undeniable proof of paternity. To my surprise, there were no objections. I didn't dissolve my 30-year marriage to Anna, but I decided to start fresh in Texas. I bought myself a new shiny pickup truck and set aside a modest sum of money for a rainy day. I quickly connected with local contractors, who were more than willing to welcome me into their ranks on a part-time basis. Now, with a new outlook on life and new opportunities on the horizon, I feel ready for the future. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. I've ended up caught in a web of uncertainty, still reeling from that mysterious letter. It's not that I hadn't noticed changes in my wife over the past month, but they were there. Barbara, usually full of energy and passion, had become increasingly moody and withdrawn. At first, I chalked it up to the stress of her job after a recent promotion. Whenever I tried to bring it up, she brushed me off, and to be honest, I was preoccupied with my own issues. Recently, I signed a promising new contract that I believed could take my career to new heights. But then, that letter appeared in my mailbox, unraveling the tangled threads of my concerns. It didn't just reveal a troubling situation. It pointed directly to the source of my unease. I knew I had to act quickly. I couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping away. Finally, it dawned on me why Barbara had been so silent through all of this. The name that haunted my thoughts was Harry Clark, a senior manager at the company where Barbara worked. It didn't take long to connect the dots. He was her new boss. A striking figure, 6 feet tall, he towered over my petite wife, and over me for that matter. Not that I was a giant myself, but I wasn't the type to back down easily. The letter served as a stern warning against confronting Barbara directly with the disturbing evidence I had received. A line had been crossed, and I needed to tread carefully. Barbara had an upcoming formal event, and I had already told her I couldn't take time off to join her. But that was then, and now, I had made up my mind. I would go to that event. I would keep my eyes wide open, determined to find out if there was any truth to the unsettling connection between my wife and Clark. If things went wrong, it could lead to serious consequences. Yes, that's exactly what I was hinting at. But who had sent that mysterious letter? Suddenly, I made a bold declaration. Tomorrow, I'm going to the corporate event. Barbara responded too quickly. You don't have to, Adam. You've got more important things to deal with right now. There's nothing more important to me than my wife, I countered, my tone firm. Adam, it's not exactly a dance, she said, her voice tinged with unease. You'll probably be bored to tears. Are spouses allowed? I asked, already anticipating her answer. You know they are, she reluctantly agreed, and many of them will be there. I suppose so, she admitted, her hesitation clear. Honestly, it's not really your crowd. Are you uncomfortable with me being there, Barbara? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. Of course not, Adam. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and it pierced my heart. Well, then I'm going, I declared, making up my mind. End of discussion. I might not have had the prestigious education or high-level training that many of the men at that gathering could boast of, but I had done my best. My hair was neatly combed, and I wore a well-fitted suit. In fact, I had several, each one sharper than the last. Of course, I would never wear it to work. My job involves getting my hands dirty, and formal clothes aren't exactly suited for that. Work had worn me out, so I decided to take a couple of days off to recharge. My boss wasn't thrilled with my decision, but after I laid out my reasons, he eventually agreed. Though not without a fight, he urged me to reconsider and issued a few stern warnings, as if I were the type to dive headfirst into trouble. In the end, Barbara and I got ready for the evening, and I felt sharper than usual, while Barbara looked absolutely stunning. She stood barely 5 feet tall, but she had charisma and charm in abundance. We had met at the gym years ago, and it was clear she had maintained her fitness over the years. The black dress Barbara wore hugged her curves perfectly, and the high heels made her almost as tall as I was. As the evening unfolded, I quickly realized who Clark was. I was struck by how Barbara deliberately avoided being alone with him, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was the only one who noticed. Perhaps I was, but if not for that letter, I likely wouldn't have picked up on the tension. I tried to stay in the background, letting her mingle and introduce herself, engaging in the usual small talk that seemed to be the norm that evening. Just when I started to think I was wasting my time, fate threw me a curveball. Suddenly, they were alone together on the bustling dance floor. He had that unmistakable look of a cat that had just caught the canary, with smug satisfaction written all over his face. Meanwhile, Barbara seemed caught in a web of awkwardness, her eyes darting around as if searching for me, her silent observer. And I watched, though I wasn't thrilled with the scene unfolding before me. The way his hands moved closer to her made my stomach churn. I didn't like it one bit, but I had to act cautiously. Patience was my ally, and it seemed that my moment was just on the horizon. Hello, I began, finally catching his eye. Harry Clark, right? He responded with a hint of caution. That's right. I'm sorry, but you look familiar. I can't quite place you. I'm from the West Office, I said, leveraging the only connection I had to my advantage. A wave of relief washed over me. My decision to keep my distance from Barbara had paid off. Ah, he exclaimed, extending his hand. You must be Perez, the new head of transitional acquisitions. Yes, that's correct, I said, though I had no idea what that title entailed, and I resisted the urge to grip his hand too tightly as I shook it. I don't know many people here yet, he continued, a smirk playing on his lips. But I saw you dancing with that lovely blonde. Is she your wife? You mean Barbara Smith? I replied, forcing a smile. He smirked knowingly, and I sensed that this wasn't just casual conversation. Not my wife, he clarified, but we're getting to know each other. That's how it all starts, lucky guy, I grinned, playfully nudging him. She's amazing, breathtaking, really. And those curves? Wow. He grinned slyly and winked back at me. So have you touched them? I asked, my heart racing as I awaited his response. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the confirmation I so desperately craved. For a brief second I thought he might dodge the question, but then I saw the gears turning in his head. Yes, he confessed with an exaggerated sigh, clearly pleased with himself. She's been entertaining me in my office. For a month now, he added, and she's been bending over my desk, practically begging for it. You're playing a dangerous game, I spat out, my anger barely contained. Does she have a husband? Yes, he nodded solemnly. She's got a husband, some pathetic loser, completely unqualified. I have no idea why she's still with him. What does he even do for a living? I asked him with a playful grin, eager to dig deeper into the situation. What's his name? He shrugged, confusion clouding his face. I have no idea, he admitted. From what I gathered, he didn't even have a steady job. It seems like he spent half his time at home, living off his wife's income. Tell me his name, I repeated, savoring the fact that my wife hadn't even come close to breaking our vows. I think she calls him Adam, he grumbled, irritation creeping into his voice. Adam Smith, probably. At that point, I couldn't resist correcting him. Actually, it's Adam Perez. Smith is her maiden name, which she uses for work. Why would she do that? He asked, still not grasping the trouble he was in. We agreed on it, I replied, letting my words sink in. What do you mean you? He began, his voice trailing off in shock. I mean her husband, I calmly stated, watching his expression change. Understanding dawned on him and he laughed, finally connecting the dots. Here to beg me to please her? I'm here to teach you a lesson in manners, I sighed, trying to keep my composure. A runt like you? He sneered, clearly underestimating me. He was 5 or 6 inches taller and probably twice my weight. And then, in a moment of desperation, I did something truly provocative. I wanted to provoke a reaction that would go unnoticed by the casual observers around us, so I spat at him. You little bastard! He roared, finally taking the bait and lunging at me. Maybe he recognized me as Barbara's husband, but thankfully he didn't dig deeper. He swung at me, and while I dodged the blow, I allowed him to land a hit, jerking back sharply as if struck hard. Though you doubt my abilities, let me assure you that my so-called part-time job gave me more than just a paycheck. I'm going to lay you out, he yelled, flailing his arms like a windmill in a storm as he chased after me. Clearly, he thought he could knock me out while I reminded myself to stay calm and not resort to using my fists. Smirking, I realized that any observer would see who started the fight, and I was ready to deliver the promised lesson. Dodging his wild swings felt like child's play. Finally, when I struck back, my slap landed on him with such force that he staggered back, momentarily stunned. You fight like a woman, he sneered and lunged at me again. Big mistake. 6 swift slaps later, he was sprawled on the ground, and I stood over him, adrenaline coursing through my veins, a sense of satisfaction settling in my soul. For God's sake, Adam, what have you done? My wife Barbara exclaimed, rushing to pull me away from him. You shouldn't have gone this far, Adam, she scolded, concern etched on her face. You shouldn't have slept with him. You destroyed 30 years of marriage, I replied with hatred. You've deeply hurt me, and now you'll regret it. No, Adam, you've got it all wrong. During my conversation with Harry, I had turned on a voice recorder, and it was evidence of her infidelity. Approaching the microphone, I played the recording of the conversation. Everyone around turned to look at me, clearly surprised by what they heard. Some whispered, some smirked. The recording ended, and I walked out of the building, marking the end of my marriage. Soon after, Barbara and her lover were fired. The CEO was at the event and witnessed everything. The next day, I filed for divorce, using our prenuptial agreement, and Barbara left our marriage with $20,000, and I began to move on. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.